Okay. Now let us see the next LOS. Okay, so please note that we were focusing on aggregate only. So we will, let's say this is the next LOS that we are talking about, is the market equilibrium. So it is the same LOS, LOSD, because we have now achieved the aggregation of the demand and supply. The process is clear. Okay, now we are moving to the concept of equilibrium. What is equilibrium? Okay, so we say that the market will be in equilibrium when the aggregate quantity demanded, okay, at a given price. Please note that this is important. When you have at a given price whatever the aggregate quantity demanded, it will be equal to the aggregate quantity supplied at the same price. So at the given price, whatever the demand, you will supply the same quantity at the same price. So here we have the equation. So we need to equate the price in the aggregate demand and the aggregate supply. So we are saying that, okay, the price that you have in the aggregate demand should be equal to the price you have in the aggregate supply, because at the given price and you have the same price. Okay, so we have this as the demand function. Okay, and we have this as the supply function, right? So price of T is equal to this, okay, and price of T is equal to this. Please note that this is the quantity supplied. Here you have the quantity demanded, right? Now what we say is the price of T is same in both, so we can equate these two equation, right? So when we are equating this equation, we are saying that 500.57, okay, is equal to this. Okay. Now here when we are equating, we need to think that the quantity demand is equal to the quantity supplied, which is equal to Q, right? So when we are equating, what we do over here is we move this to this side, okay, and we replace it with Q. So you have 0.0143. On that you add 40402. So when you are adding the 402, you get over here, okay, this, because we are only focusing over here, so this will become slightly more. So 0.014306 into Q, and when you subtract from 500.57, so you bring it over here, so you subtract 0.7 from this, so it will become 499.87. here 14, because these are only approximate values, so these are your correct values, right? Then what you do is you say that 0.14306 quantity is equal to this, and from there you get quantity is 34942, right? So quantity will be equal to 499 divided by this value, and the price will be, so what is the equilibrium price? Price will be equal to 1.3988. So how do we get the price? So whatever the quantity you have got over here, you put over here and you will be able to get the price. Let us see what we have done in Excel. So in fact we have done in Excel the entire thing. Okay, so so we are saying that, okay, aggregate supply should be equal to the aggregate demand. Okay, so here we had this was we did, so 0.02, right? On that we will add 0.143, so this should be added, so this will be plus, right? So you are adding these two. When you have added, this will become this plus this, okay, right? In fact we are solving over here, okay, 0.02 plus D20, right? So your D20, we are going back over here, and this was our coefficient. So this was our coefficient. This is much more in lengthy, so that's why we are using this directly. So you have got this, okay, and you have 500.57 minus 0.7. This is the value you have got, right? So quantity demanded will be this divided by this, so you are having over here 499 by this, so 34942. So quantity is 34942. So we are saying that if quantity is 34942, what is the price? The price can be achieved from this equation, so D19. So whatever the equation we had, right, so we can put over here, okay, because we have got the quantity value, we want to know the price. So 500.57 minus this coefficient into the quantity is given, so we get the price, so 39833. Just to make sure that this is the price and the quantity that you get in the aggregate supply, we have put the same in the aggregate supply also. Okay, and we are saying that if your quantity demanded is 34942, so we have referred to the sheet of aggregate demand and keep O23 over there, where we had this value, and the price will be exactly the same. So 0.0002 into this value plus 0.7, you get this as the price. So here you see that the quantity demanded and the price is same under both, right? So that is what you will see, that this is a case of market equilibrium. So let us see what do we mean by market equilibrium. So market equilibrium, we say that, okay, this is your supply curve and this is your demand curve, right? So when the supply curve is moving like this, demand curve is moving like this, this is aggregate market supply and market demand. Okay, now there will be a point, okay, where these two will meet. Okay, the point is decided on the equation, these two equation. We have seen that we have solved these two equation, okay, and we are saying that at this point will be equal to this as the quantity demanded will be 34942 and the price, equilibrium price, will be 1.4. So at $1.4, okay, both of these are meeting. Okay, now think about this as this is a demand curve. Suppose we are over here at this point. Okay, so we are over here at this point. Okay, so let's say this price is $2, assuming that this is $2, and what we see over here is at $2, okay, people are demanding this much quantity. Okay, so people are demanding this much quantity, less quantity. Okay, right? Oh, sorry. Let's see over here. Okay, so think about okay, this side of the curve. Okay, this side of the curve. Okay, okay. Let's say suppose, okay, we are supplying, okay, assuming we are supplying 34,000. Okay, so let's say suppose the quantity supplied is 34,000, right? Now whenever you have this as the quantity supplied, the supplier will be able to supply this quantity at, let's say, a price of $1, assuming that at $1 he will be able to supply 34,000 quantity, right? Now for 34,000 quantity, the customers, they are willing to pay $2. Okay, so to consume 34,000 quantity, people are willing to pay $2, but the supplier is charging only this. So we are saying that the cost to the customer is $1. Okay, but since they are willing to pay $2, it means that they are able to derive a benefit. Please note that the amount of money that you will pay for a product is the amount of benefit that you are going to get. Okay, you are not going to pay more than the benefit you are going to get. So here your benefit that you are getting is $2, but you are being asked to pay only $1. So here what we see is, okay, the benefit that you have is more than what you pay, right? Please note that because the supplier is not going to charge you $1, because you have the price as fixed as 1.4, so still you are getting a higher benefit. So even though the supplier is charging you 1.4, you are getting a benefit of 2. So here what we say is, this point of this area, you are getting the higher benefit. In fact, what we say is, okay, this is the if you see in the book, they have mentioned like this. So this is the maximum price that you are willing to pay. So a buyer will pay this price or less than this price. So a buyer is willing to pay any price which is below this. Okay, similarly a supplier is willing to take any price which is above this. So this is the minimum price that the supplier is taking, but here we are paying the supplier 1.4. we are paying the supplier 1.4. he is getting more than his demand. Okay, similarly the customer are charged 1.4. they were willing to pay this as the higher price. So this price they are willing to pay, this price they are willing to pay, but you are charging them only 1.4. so they are paying less than what they are willing to pay. So definitely they will consume over here. Okay, and the supplier will supply the product over here. So if you see this area, we are saying that the benefit that people are getting are more than the cost that they are paying. Okay, so the cost is this, okay, for the supplier, benefit is to the individual, but they are paying 1.4, okay. So the consumer are paying 1.4 and they are deriving a benefit which is more than 1.4. So we are saying that the demand is going to increase. So here if you see the quantity, okay, people are paying this price X, which is people are paying 1.4, but they are able to pay Px. So they will say that, okay, I will consume more, okay, because I am getting the benefit, okay. So they start consuming more and more because they are getting the benefit from here, correct. And the supplier, because they are supplying, they could supply at this cost, okay, right, and they are getting 1.4, they are getting a good benefit over here, right. So they will say that let me get the benefit, okay, they supply more, and the benefit they get keep on increasing, okay. Now if you see any point beyond this, okay, let's say if you want a supplier to supply this much quantity, okay, his cost, please note that this market supply is the nothing but the cost, what we call as a marginal cost. We'll see it later, okay, but marginal cost is the cost to supply an additional unit, okay, right. So assuming everything constant, okay, you may wonder why it is increasing, we will take it later, okay. So what we are saying is the cost to supply one more unit is this much, okay. The price he is getting is only 1.4, so this is his cost, okay, this is the cost, and he is getting only this as the price. So there is a loss to the person, the supplier, there is a loss, okay. So he will not supply at this loss. He will say that why I will supply at this loss, right? You will not want to supply at this loss. You will try to reduce the quantity supplied. You will go over here. Your loss has decreased, but still there is a loss. You want to get your loss to zero. So equilibrium is a point. So equilibrium is a point where you are having no profit, no loss, okay, on marginal, but you have got this entire thing as the benefit. Okay, we'll see that this is called as, in the other LOS we'll call this as a surplus to the consumer, okay, and we will call this as the surplus to the supplier. So this is the supplier surplus, and here we say that the benefit are less, so here both of those are coming loss. Let's see how the loss happens to the customer. Okay, right. If let's say you are saying that customer will consume this much quantity, so the benefit to the customer has now reduced to this price. Let's say this is 1, okay, right, and you are asking the customer to fork out 1.4. He will say that I am getting a benefit of only $1 and I have to pay 1.4. What the heck? I am losing 0.4, right? So I am losing 0.4. I will not consume this quantity. Why I should consume? He will reduce his quantity demanded. He will reduce his quantity demanded, and you get to here the 0 point. Okay, any doubt? Right. So that is what we have, the concept of the equilibrium. Okay, so in equilibrium you have the marginal benefit is equal to the marginal cost. So you have this area, it is greater. When you are having greater, you will move. When you are having less, you will move this side. This is the point where both are same, correct. Okay. Now the next thing that we have to understand is, they have asked in the LOS the mechanism by which the market achieves the equilibrium. Now how the market achieves the equilibrium? Let's say, suppose if the market price is $1 kg, so if the price in the market, instead of equilibrium price of 1.4, the price in the market is 1 kg. So what we are saying is the price in the market is 1 per kg. So this is the price. So $1 per kg is the price. So at this $1 per kg, what happens is the supplier will supply this X quantity. This X quantity is less than the equilibrium quantity. And at this point, okay, so what we are saying is at this point the buyers are willing to pay a higher price, okay, or sorry, we are saying that at this price of $1 per kg, you see that there is a demand of Y, okay. Now naturally that Y is greater than equilibrium, okay, and X is lower than equilibrium. So what we see over here, we say that there is a gap. So there is a gap over here. So you have excess demand, Okay, so at this point of time you are having excess demand because people want more quantity. Please think about it, when the price reduces at 1 kg 1 per kg, people will demand more. So the demand is arrived at from the demand function. So what you do is you $1, this point you extend it and you drop it, so you will get the quantity demanded. $1 you extend to the supply, this is the supply, drop it down, you get the quantity supplied. Now when you have excess demand, what happens? Okay, so think about, go to a cricket match. Okay, you see that the demand of ticket is more than the supply, right? So what you can expect is that people will increase the price, okay, of the tickets. So the $1 price, people are seeing it is less. Okay, so the suppliers, they will be able to increase the price. So what happens is the suppliers will increase the price. So let's say the supplier has increased the price to 1.3. So when you have increased the supply price to 1.3, what happens is you have now this as the demand. So this is the supply. So you have supplied X1. Okay, so you are going to supply X1 over here. Okay, and then at this point your demand is Y1. Right? Again you see that this is the excess demand. Okay, still people want more. Okay, so there is excess demand, right? So your Y1 is greater than X1. Okay, so what we are saying is still 1.3 is cheap in the mind of the customer, right? So again there is a scope to increase the price, right? So it can be increased, and if you see if the price is made to be 1, let's say if the price is made to be $1, what happens? 1.4. At this point of time, the demand and the supply will be exactly this much. So demand and supply is exactly this quantity. So there is no excess demand. So please note that at equilibrium, you will not have any excess demand. Okay, correct? So this is what happens if you decrease the price, okay, below the equilibrium. So if the price is below the price equilibrium, you will have excess demand. Correct? Right? Now let us see what if the price is above the equilibrium level. Okay. Okay. Let us see if the price is above the equilibrium level. Let's say the price has become $2. Okay. So if the price has become $2, we will see that the demand curve, we will wherever this price is meeting the demand curve, we will get it down. We will bring this down, and we will say that this is a quantity demanded. And similarly we will bring this over here, and this is a supply. Wherever it is meeting the supply, we will say that this is a quantity supplied, right? Now what we are saying is over here, quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded. Quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. It means that you have now a case of excess supply. So there is more supply over here, right? So what happens is, think about, let's say you go to the market, let's say you go to fish market, okay, and you see that there are more supply, okay, than the demand. Okay, so there is more supply than the product that you have demanded. So what will happen? So there is more supply with respect to the demand. So what will happen is people will start paying lower price, or the supplier will say, okay, give me lower, okay, give me lower price, right? So because the demand is lower than the supply, you will pay lower price. So we'll see that, okay, so you will pay lower price. So you start paying, let's say you start paying $1.5, but still at 1.5 what you find is this 1.5 is meeting this as the demand. Let's say this is D1, okay, and the supply at this point is S1, right? So this is the supply and this is demand. Still you see that the supply is greater than the demand. S1 is greater than the demand. So you still have a case of excess supply. So there is a further scope of reduction in the price, right? So the price is going to be further reduced, and it will be to this point, right? So you make the price as 1.4, it will have both the supply and demand, it will meet over here, and this is the quantity demanded. So what we see over here is when you have excess supply, okay, so think about it, okay, when you are having excess supply, Okay, so when the price are higher, okay, when the price is greater than the price equilibrium, you have excess supply and this will be reducing and it will achieve this level. Whenever you have price lower than the price equilibrium, this is going to increase. Okay, the idea is to achieve this. Okay, so your quantity demanded, okay, is more, it will come to the quantity equilibrium. At this point your quantity supplied is more, it will achieve the equilibrium by shifting. So when it shifts, the price will reach, right? So the moving to the equilibrium, okay, moving to the equilibrium, you have this time you have excess supply, okay, and you have here you have excess demand, correct?